Welcome to the Right Academy. I'm Matthew R. Miller. Today we're going to be talking about publishing. It's something a lot of new writers want to know about, and I think it's worth your while to watch this video. So right now, the trend in all of the arts seems to be eliminating the middleman, eliminating the gatekeepers. And I mean in movies, books, illustration, music, whatever. And I know some people who are, for example, a Hollywood illustrator and screenwriter who's done some big stuff. And he told me the very same thing, eliminating the middleman. Here's what we mean. Traditionally, in the arts, there's been the artist, and there's been someone who stands between the artist and the public, an agent, something like that. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because not all artists, an artist is not necessarily a marketer, a publicist, a people person. It totally depends. We artists can be very weird, right? Sometimes. So right now, though, the trend is to be eliminating the middleman and eliminating gatekeepers. We'll talk about that in a moment. Many are having great success with this. There are some writers who are independently published who are making tens of thousands of dollars a month on Amazon. Okay, but we need to talk about that. Okay, publishing is no different. It's eliminating the middleman. Now, traditionally, publishing a book means putting it out to the world for people to read, hopefully buy and read. The traditional publishing way, which still exists and is still a good way, I'm not saying it's bad, is this. Write a book. That's always step one. Write a good book. Make sure it's edited professionally. And then once you're ready and proud of it and think it's a work to be published, you query literary agents. Querying means you write them a letter. Today online, used to be paper, mail. You explain the book, what it's about, tell about yourself, describe why the book would be a good fit for them and why it will sell. No more than one page, 3 paragraphs, ideal. I'll do another video about query letters. It's very difficult to get a literary agent. They are flooded with hundreds and hundreds of query letters and manuscripts every day. And the vast majority of them are frankly junk. So, you got to get their attention. And if they like the query letter, then they'll say, okay, send me the first chapter of the book or send me 3 chapters. They like it, send me the whole manuscript, and then finally you'll get rejected. Probably you'll get rejected. Where literary agents reject the vast majority of all people who query them. And that's simply because they are overloaded with work and a lot of it's junk. It's not because they're mean or that they want to do this. Just imagine if you get hundreds of scripts or books all the time, how could you possibly personally respond to each one? And a lot of them are going to be bad. If a literary agent agrees to represent you, congratulations, you've made a huge step in publishing. You will then talk to the agent, sign a contract if you're interested, and then the agent will take your work and pitch it to publishers. In other words, try to convince publishers to publish it. Publishers being companies that print and distribute and market books. Okay? When you go into Barnes & Noble or your local bookstore, all those books on the shelves, a company has printed and distributed those books. That's the publisher. Traditionally, the publisher and you then market the book. Okay? They'll do a lot to help you market it, but these days, the writer has to be a good marketer too. Usually, an agent will take 15% of your gross sales for domestic sales, 20% for foreign sales. The publisher will take anywhere from 10 to 15% of your gross sales. So you're looking at up to 30% of your, royalties being taken by the agent and the publisher, or sometimes more. It all depends. Okay. And that's actually not bad. If you know anything about business, profit margins, royalties, that's not a bad deal really for a writer when they're doing so much stuff. And some people ask, well, doesn't the publisher give you an advance? Like write you a check for $50,000. Then once they sell more than that, unusual. If they think your book's really going to do super well or you're already established, you make it an advance. First-time writer, don't expect an advance. Okay. That's the traditional way of publishing, and it's worked well for a long time. Here's what I guess I'll call the new way or the more independent way. You can call it independent publishing, call it self-publishing. I prefer the term independent because as you'll see, there often is a team involved. So first step, write a book, write a good book. Then you need to hire a professional editor. And let me say this, the traditional way, you need to hire an editor yourself. Then if an agent and a publisher take you on, they're going to have an in-house editor or an editor they work with who's going to work with your book. If you're independently publishing, you need to find an editor, hire an editor, um, a human editor. Don't get me started on AI, but editing is so much more than just finding typos. There's developmental editing, copy editing, line editing. There's so many types of editing. I'm very lucky that I have a great developmental editor. And I'm going to put her email address in the comments if you're interested. She's great. She's very reasonably priced. Just want to give a plug to her. So you hire your editor. Then, unless you're an artist, you need to hire someone to design your cover. You need to hire someone to format the book to the proper format inside, which is harder than it sounds, by the way. If you want to learn to do those things yourself, great. Just don't ever try to edit your own book, because we can never view our work objectively. We just can't. And we need other perspectives. So once you've had your book edited, and you feel like it's ready to go to the world, then you use some kind of a service to get your book out there. By service, I mean a free service, because you don't have to pay for this. Amazon KDP is by far the biggest one. Ingram Sparks is another one, and there's some others too. But Amazon, the vast majority of readers in the US and around the world buy their books on Amazon. So really, if your book's not on Amazon, you're missing out on a huge market. And publishing through Amazon is very easy if you're willing to take the time to learn the steps. You get commission. So in Amazon, it depends on some things, but usually in Amazon, your print books, you get 60% of the price minus the cost of printing, like the physical cost of the paper and the ink. An ebook, you get 35% or 70%, depending on where it's sold and what options you choose. But then you do all the marketing and all the sales, okay? You do it. No one's going to help you market. You have to do it yourself, which is where some writers think, oh, God, how do I market? It's not easy. You have to leverage social media. You have to learn about social media, how to post, when to post. You have to go to conferences, to conventions. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've gone to horror conventions to try to sell my book. Sometimes you do well, sometimes you don't. Go to local bookstores, talk to them, ask if they're willing to do consignment. That means they will sell your book, and in return, they will take 40% of the cost, the profit. You take 60%. But not every local bookstore is going to take every book. Some of them have standards or want certain things. Let's talk about advantages and disadvantages of traditional publishing versus the new way. Traditional publishing, here's the advantages. You get to work with industry professionals with tons and years of experience who know what they're doing, who have the connections, who are pros at this. This is what they do. They know everything. They know what sells. They have connections, and another advantage, still today, traditional publishing is taken a little bit more seriously. This is changing as more and more writers are becoming super successful independently. But if you're published through a big publishing house, it looks good. And frankly, it looks good. And people are probably a little more likely to give your book a chance. And it's much easier to get your book into physical bookstores with a traditional publisher and agent set up. Disadvantages, you have less creative control, okay? An agent and a publisher care about one thing only. Will this book sell in the current market? Doesn't matter if the book's good, bad, a great work of art, a piece of crap, doesn't matter. If it will sell in the current market, they will often take a chance on it. They know what sells, okay? And the disadvantage is that if you could write the world's greatest work of literature, if it won't sell in the current market, good luck, you're going to get rejected. You can also write some crap, and if it will sell in the current market, you might become rich and famous. Like I won't mention some books that have become popular that I think are terrible, but you get lower royalties, okay, traditionally, and you have exclusive contracts where the publisher will own the right to your work to sell it for a certain amount of time, and many different contracts. The new way of independent publishing, here are the advantages. You have complete creative control. You have a much lower barrier to entering the industry, which can be good and bad. You have a quicker process. You can get books out as quickly as you can write them, have them edited, and have a cover ready. You can get them out. You get higher royalties, like I said. You own the book, the rights to it completely and forever until you die. Then plus 75 years? You can go directly to your readers with the marketing. Disadvantages is that you still, unless you are an artist and a formatter, you still have to find an artist and a formatter to hire. You always should hire an editor, a human editor, no matter what. Don't try to edit your own work. Another disadvantage, you don't know what sells in the current market without extensive research. There's a reason literary agents are professionals because they have that research. Um, Another problem is that, you know, I don't want this to sound condescending because it's not. I encourage people to write, get your work out there, but everyone thinks they're a good writer, right? The vast majority of independently published books, maybe not the majority, but a whole lot of them are absolute crap. Okay. Most people's first book is going to be crap. Okay. It doesn't mean that you can't learn, because you can. I encourage people learn, study, learn to write. But everyone's putting books out there. It floods the market with a lot of bad stuff, which of course makes, drags everyone down. You have to do all the marketing and sales. If you're good at that, fantastic. If you're not, it can be hard. It's harder to get into physical bookstores. It's still taken a little less seriously, independent publishing than traditional publishing. And then, warning, there are scammers who are flooding the independent publishing industry, filled with scammers. Okay, let's talk about a couple of little scamming things here. First of all, vanity presses. This is where a publishing company will charge you money to publish your book. They're not doing anything you cannot do yourself. They're not a traditional publisher. They'll take anyone, they'll take any work, no matter how bad it is. They'll charge you some huge amount to do essentially nothing. If they provide editing and artwork at all, it's not going to be good. Professionals who take their work seriously don't work for vanity presses. And then basically, they don't do anything that you can't do yourself. So you're just wasting money on this. At best, they'll make a little effort and do something. At worst, they'll just take your money and run and ignore you. They often make you sign predatory contracts. You might lose the rights to your work. So avoid vanity presses. The rule is don't pay to publish. 2, marketing scammers. These are everywhere, especially on social media. Just because someone claims to be a marketer or thinks they can market doesn't make them a marketer. They might spam a few groups with your book, but if you want real marketers, you're going to have to pay a lot of money to professional marketing agencies, and that still doesn't guarantee anything. So avoid people who claim to be marketers. Advertising. Here's something to think about. Advertising is expensive and requires research. I find a lot of success with Amazon ads, but you have to learn how to do them. The right keywords, the right audience, bids per click. It's complicated. So you need to spend the time doing it. Another problem is people using AI and claiming to be editors, running your work through Grammarly. That's not editing. Finding typos or trusting some computer program is not editing. Editing is a matter of style, of art, of course, of grammar and typos, but that's the last stage. Developmental editing. What if you have a plot hole? Grammarly's not going to find that. What if this character is not well developed enough? Grammarly's not going to find that. So avoid AI. So people are making good livings these days by independently publishing, but most are not. Keep that in mind. Most independent publishers are not making money on their books because it's hard. Not only is the industry flooded, but writing is hard. I'm not saying you can't do it. It's a skill. It's an art. Just like you could learn to play the piano, you could learn to write a book. But it doesn't mean if you just sit down at a piano, you're going to be Mozart, automatically, if you don't know anything about it. You need to take the time, and this sometimes can take time, sometimes years, to learn to write, to read voraciously, write every day, read the classics, read everything in your genre, practice your writing, master your language and the grammar of the style of that language, attend conferences, things like that. Just because you can write, meaning you're literate, doesn't mean you can write literature. So you need to take the time to really develop a skill. If you want to be a writer, do these things. Read, write, work with real human editors, spend a lot of time revising the books. Rewriting and revising is a huge part of the process. Your first draft is going to be crap. Everyone's. I don't care if Dostoevsky's first drafts were crap. Then try querying some agents and see what happens. I'll do another video about how to query an agent. There are some good resources out there. Querytracker.net is a very good one. The Writer's Market is a good one. Prepare to be rejected dozens, hundreds, thousands of times. Like I said, it's nothing personal. Agents only care what's going to sell in the market today. It doesn't mean your work is bad. It just means it didn't work. It's not a good fit for them. Prepare to get, if anything, a form letter. Okay. And if you don't have luck with that, give independent publishing a try. My opinion, Amazon is the easiest, best way to do it because it has the most readers in the world. And the most important thing is never give up. You can be a writer, but you have to work at it. It's hard work. It's not easy. It's not just sitting down at a laptop and chugging out a few paragraphs. It takes training, practice, and knowledge. I hope that helped. And I hope if you want to try to publish a book, you'll give it a try, but do it the right way. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. I'm Matthew R. Miller. You are watching the Write Right Academy.